we're going to go to Chaim Schwartz, Executive Vice President of the Vaad of Queens, who is coming to us live from his kitchen with the nice VHG sign, who will be now going through some ways to kosher your kitchen, your house, your kalim for Pesach. Chaim, can you hear us?
Yeah, I can hear you. Can everybody hear me?
Yep.
Okay, first and foremost, I'd like to thank my wife for giving me her kitchen on a busy Sunday night before Pesach and allowing us to take it over and to show you how to kosher. I also want to thank the video producer and director, my son Shmuley, who's on the other side of the camera. I want to thank Rabbi Elif and Rabbi Sigal for putting this together. And I also, of course, want to give my biggest thanks to Rabbi Elephant for giving the share he gave, and to hear his voice again, as I have every year before Pesach when the OU has their Erev Pesach shiurim and things that come out. And unfortunately, it has to be in the setting, but Baruch Hashem, we're able to, modern technology, come together. So the first problem that one faces, especially those that have never made Pesach before, is the anxiety and the panic of koshering for Pesach. I just want to tell you, don't have anxiety, don't have panic. If Chazal told us and Shulchan Aruch tells us the halachas that you can kosher and tells us what to do, so that means you can do it too. You're all capable of doing it. The most important thing is to do it when you're calm, and to do it when you're ready to do it, and to do it when nothing else is happening. You need full attention, and you need to be ready to do it well and safely. Safety is the utmost importance when it comes to koshering. I can tell you from all the years of koshering in different places, the scars and bruises and burns, and it does not have to be that way. You can do it slowly, carefully, calmly, and unfortunately this year we have a lot of time, so we can really do it right. We're not in a rush. So the first thing I want to direct your attention to is to the ubiquitous oven that everybody here has. We can get our videographer to check. So of course over here we have an oven. It's a Hot Point made by GE. And how are we doing over here? We got it? And this is a self-clean oven. In order to get a self-clean oven ready for Pesach, all one has to do is hit the self-clean button, press start, and then let it go. That will kosher your oven. That will kosher your oven, and that will make it kosher to Pesach. We'll turn that off over here. Now, before you do the self-clean oven, it's very important that you want to make sure that the air in the kitchen is ventilated. It's probably a good idea to make sure that the children are not around, because there will be fumes coming up. Open the back door, open your kitchen windows, make sure that there's a lot of ventilation, because it will get a little bit greasy. The smell will come up, the fumes will come out. It's not so geschmack, it's not so much fun. You want to do it in a time when the kids are not going to be in the kitchen. You want to make sure that there is good ventilation. Now, what happens if a person does not have a self-clean oven, which is in Queens? I know there's a lot of young couples, especially in Kehilas Torah Tamima, which is a co-sponsor, and there's been a lot of questions what to do with a non-self-clean oven. So it's very, very easy. What you want to do is you want to get into the oven. We can just pan over here. Make sure you take out the shelves. You want to use either Samaritz or Easy Off. I recommend Samaritz. It has less fumes. Easy Off is very heavy on the lungs, and especially what's going on right now with the COVID-19, which is an upper respiratory infection. Maybe it's better to stay away from it. You want to take out the shelves. You want to clean them well. Do it over the sink or take them outside on the porch if you have one. Wipe them down well. This is your best friend when it comes to cleaning shelves, a shmata. You want to use the shmata, you want to clean it well. You want to clean the glass here in the oven. You want to clean the inside of the oven as well as possible. And then what you're going to do is we're going to turn the oven on as high as it goes, if it's 450 or 500. We in the Vaad, we recommend at least 2 hours to do it. If there's a broil setting, you can leave that on as well and let it go for about 2 hours. And then you'll be kosher. Now there is a machlekes haposkim what to do about the glass. Rabbi Welcher has told me that he prefers that, and the psak that we have is that the glass be covered if you do not have a self-cleaning oven. And that's because the self-cleaning oven will kosher the glass extensively, but a non-self-cleaning oven, it won't necessarily get everything kosher. So therefore, after you've kosher the oven, or actually before you kosher the oven, you want to take heavy duty aluminum foil, and you want to cover the glass. Make sure the aluminum foil comes around to the front, tape it down here, and then you're ready to go. Now, a lot of people are able to buy new silverware for the Yom Tiv. A lot of people are not. So how do you kosher silverware? So let's go to the videotape. Let's go right here. If you see, this is a pot. Now this is a chametz pot. If I want to take a chametz pot and kosher silverware in it, I first have to kosher the chametz pot. So we've already started here with the pot and we put the water in. But the first thing a person has to do, anytime you're koshering something which needs either libon or hagala, and I was remiss leaving out about the oven, that the oven has to be clean and then it has to be left for 24 hours, unless you're doing a self-clean. A self-clean is a libon gomer. Libon gomer does not need 24 hours because everything is getting burned. So again, let me go over that. If you're doing a libon gomer, you don't need 24 hours of a clean oven. If you're not doing a libon gomer, you're doing a non-self-clean oven, which is really a libon kal, you have to clean the oven, let it sit for 24 hours, and then you can run it at the highest temperature for 2 hours, 2.5 hours. When it comes to koshering kalim, it comes to koshering silverware. So what we want to do with that is, we want to first, if we're going to take a chametz pot, we have to kosher the chametz pot. We have to clean the pot, make sure it's 100% clean, let it sit for 24 hours, make sure it's dry, and then we have to put hot water, the way you see it right now, and boil it in the pot. We have the pot. Now, right now, as you see, the water is boiling. That's called mala avabuis. That means it's a rolling boil. The water is coming up. Just having a boil on the bottom of the pot is not enough. You have to have mala avabuis. The bubbles have to be rising, have to be continuously coming up and going down, coming up and going down. Now, just getting the water in here is not enough. I need to get the water over the sides, and I need to use it. I need to be able to get the whole pot kosher. So what a person can do is you can take a rack, or there's something that they sell, they may have in gift world or others from, if you can get there, from their mitzvah, and that's this, which is a Evan Malubin. It's a hot stone, and what you're going to do is you're going to put it in, and what that does is it gets the water to go over the sides. Now that the water went over the sides, now it's kosher. Now it's kosher. Excuse me. So now that we kosher the pot, a chametz pot. So now we can go to kosher the silverware. Now, if a person wants to use a Pesach pot, like we have over here, a Pesach pot, so then all one has to do is fill it, let the water bubble, and then you do the following procedure. As you can tell, we got the water bubbling again. We can just get the, do we have that bubbling there? So what you want to do is you want to take the spoon or the fork or the knife, whatever it is, one by one. Again, make sure it's clean and has to be used in 24 hours. It has to be 100% clean. It has to be dry. And then what you do is you drop it into the water. Now it's kosher. Now it's kosher. Making sure when you're doing all of your silverware that that water has to be mala avabuis. That bubbles, those bubbles have to keep on coming up. If it's not bubbling, if it's just like this, and let's here give an example, this is not good enough for koshering. This is not considered mala avabuis. This is mala avabuis. As you can see, that the water is rising. After a person's done with that, halacha tells us that the water, that the kalim have to go, and they have to be poured into hot water, into cold water, excuse me, rinsed in cold water. So you'll pour out the koshering water, and then you'll rinse it with cold water, and now it's kosher l'peisach. Let's talk about the countertops and the sinks. So now there are, I've seen many ways and ideas when it comes to koshering sinks. Unfortunately, not everybody has it correct, and I hope to be able to give it to you in the best way possible. The most important thing is to do it the right way and to do it the safe way. Many people don't know what the right way is, and if they know what the right way is, they don't know what the safe way is. Now, you might notice that I'm wearing gloves. These are something called linesman's gloves. They're very expensive. linesman's gloves are gloves for electric workers that are going on the lines, the cherry pickers that you'll see in the electric lines above. This is called the linesman's glove, and it can withstand X amount of watts or X amount of volts going through when they're up there on the lines. So they're called linesman's gloves. In industrial koshering, we'll stick our hand into the water because we have heavy equipment that needs to be kosher, or heavy things that you can't just drop in. You have to push in. One other thing that I wanted to point out, and I'm sorry I left it out, is if you to koshering the pot, when koshering a pot, and you want to kosher the top. So what one does is you have the rolling boil, and then you take the cover, and in the hot water, you slowly go around, and that should kosher the whole thing. Then you put it upside down, you've got the top. Now, how do I kosher a sink? How do I kosher a sink, a countertop? Many people don't realize that when I kosher the kiluach, which means the water that's being poured out of the spout, the kiluach is what koshers. So let me give an example. If I koshering with a kumkum chashmali, this is this is used for coffee, a hot water heater. So this is the best thing to use, and the reason is because if you look inside, you'll see that there's a hot water element, there's the metal element. That element suffices as a even malubin. Even malubin means a hot stone that we used before, and that hot stone, we're worried that when the water comes off the fire, it cools down. So what we want to make sure is that the water stays hot, and also the halacha tells us because of davar gush, something which was a solid might have touched the sink or the countertop. So therefore, we have to be able to make sure that the water is hot enough, that it's boiling, and that we'll be able to get the right koshering. So now, when you're koshering the whatever it is you're koshering the stovetop, you're koshering the sink. The kiluach, whatever the kiluach touches, that's what gets kosher. The water that runs down is not what koshers the sink. So therefore, if we're looking at the countertop, it's only the kiluach. Where I've done the kiluach, that's where the koshering is taking place. So therefore, a person, if they're koshering, the fact that the water runs down past where you poured the initial pouring on, that's not the koshering. The sink doesn't get koshered, or the countertop doesn't get koshered. The koshering only happens when there is the kiluach, where the water coming out, where that hits the actual surface. So therefore, one has to make sure that he gets every single part of the stovetop or of the sink. Now, that also goes for the backstop, for the backdrop. I got the name right. So if you're going to do it here, this is how you do it. You would pour it down, so that now you're able to get the kiluach on each part of it. We're able to do that? Here, should I do it again? The kiluach on each part. Of course, one must make sure that water is going to come down. Make sure you have towels already. Now, as we go to a sink, what I find the best thing to do with the sink is that if you're able to have this from their mitzvah that makes this, so then this is the best thing. And that's because what ends up happening is that getting the whole sink is very hard. So what the eitzah is, if you take this, you can do it. You pour it over. Now, if you'll see, the water went all over the sink. And now I got a very good koshering. I got an eroy on the sink on an even malubin, which touched every part. By the way, the strainer that you have in the sink, this of course is just a demonstration, but the strainer that you have in the sink, which is chametz stick, is not something which can be kosher. You have to get a new one for Pesach. What happens if you don't have one of these things? Or what happens if you don't have one of these things? So if you're allowed to go outside, the best thing to do is to go. You have a, what do we call this again? Not a wrench. Whatever it is. Pliers. Take the pliers. You'll heat up the stone. And you'll be able to heat up the stone with your pliers. Make sure you have gloves, some sort of gloves. This is going to be very, very hot. Don't touch it with your hands. Hold it out. And then you'll be able to either pour with your kumkum chashmali, with your hot water, or you'll be able to pour with this. Now, I've seen that people, what they'll do is they made videos using this to pour with. It's very difficult to pour with two hands and to get it right and to get it everywhere. The best thing to do is where you have a handle and you're not touching the actual pot, you're not touching the actual water, and the handle, especially if you have a pot like this where it's a little bit wide. So now you're able to get more of an area to capture. Especially if you have this. So now what it does is it'll spray the water around and you'll have a better way of kashering. Finally, when it comes to kashering the sink, you want to always start, if you don't have the stone, you want to start from the bottom. You want to start from the bottom and then work your way up. So that way you know two things. Number one, you know that you've kashered the bottom. Number two, what ends up happening is that the kashered area, by the time this hot water comes down, it's cool already, and it's not going to affect the kasher area, and you're taken care of. One last thing that a person has to know is about the spout. So this spout has a plastic edge at the end, has a plastic aerator at the end. This is very hard to kasher and very hard to get clean. So what we do is we remove it for Pesach, take it off, and we have a new one. You go on Amazon. I'm sure Amazon has all the parts for your sink. You can get an Amazon, you can go and get it. This year it might not be so easy, but in most years, be able to go and get a new one. If you can't, or you have a regular spout that has an aerator on it. So what you want to do is the following. You want to take the water that you kashered with. You want to pour it over the sink. Again, making sure the kiluach hits every part. And then with the water still bubbling, you want to put the aerator, the spout, into the water, into the pot where the water is bubbling. And now you have a good kashering for everything here in the kitchen. It's not as hard as it looks. It's very, very easy. And it's very, very easy. But the most important thing is to be safe, to be calm, to do it in a time where you're ready to do it. And of course, if you have any questions, feel free to get in touch with us. My cell phone number is 347-680-2603. Again, 347-680-2603. Or you can reach me at cschwartz@queensvaad.org. Again, cschwartz@queensvaad.org. And just want to wish everybody a very happy and healthy Kosher Sameach. For those of you who are doing it for the first time, we all had to do it the first time. We all had to make your face off the first time. It's the first time for everything. And the most important thing is that you should be safe, you should be healthy and happy. The phone number again is 347-680-2603, 347-680-2603. I hope it was clear. Hope everybody was able to see how to kasher for Pesach. And again, my bracha and my wish is hatzlacha to everybody. What's that? Stovetop? Yes. A question about a stovetop. Okay.
Actually, Chaim, if you don't mind, there's a whole bunch of questions that we can, if you have a couple minutes that we'd like to go through.
Sure. If you could just fix this over here.
Okay.
Noise. I'm not exactly sure what's
so
going
the first one was people wanted to know about kashering the stovetop. How do you kasher the stovetop? Does it need to be covered? What about the knobs?
One second here. I'm not exactly sure what's going on here, but anyway, so the stovetop and knobs. So the best thing to do is that a person should, the stovetop over here, you cannot kasher. This is ceramic, it can't be kasher. So what you want to do is you want to cover it with foil. Now you want to make sure that when you cover it with foil, that you leave the area around the burners open. If you're not going to leave the area around the burners open, first of all, the oven probably it has a safety feature. The stove will not work, and you will not be able to use the oven. The second thing that you want to make sure is you want to make sure that the grates, if you have thank you for reminding me, Rabbi El, if you have a self-clean oven, so the grates should go into the oven before the self-clean cycle, and that will kosher the grates. If you do not have a self-clean oven, so the best thing to do, and again, I've heard a lot of misinformation about this because it can get very dangerous. The best thing to do is turn each of them on, and I suggest you do it one at a time. Turn each of them on and let them go for about 15 minutes. Now, I have heard about Poskim telling people to cover it with aluminum foil. I'm very nervous to suggest that, and that's because if a person does not know what they're doing, you can make chas v'shalom a tremendous amount of damage. The best thing to do is to turn it on as high as it goes, let it go as high as it goes for about 15 minutes, and 15 or 20 minutes, and that will kosher it. Again, my suggestion is each one is separate. Now, where you have a small one, like here in the rear, so the only thing I can really suggest is to maybe take a small piece of foil. Make sure that when you take that small piece of foil and you cover it, make sure it gets kosher. You cover it in the following manner. You watch it, but also you want to make sure that you ventilate it, put holes in it. And in that way, you're able to kosher the grates. Okay, Rabbi Elif, more questions?
Yeah, several more questions. Once we're
No problem.
on the creating, a lot of people come through. I just want to try to go in order over here. In terms of the self-cleaning oven, people wanted to know, do you have to cover over the glass door if you use self-clean? And some people have heard that you're supposed to do a self-clean and then a second self-clean.
Right. So with the self-clean, once you do one self-clean, you don't have to do another self-clean. There's no requirement to do that. You've done a leave gomer, and that's enough. There are people, there are Nashim Tzakanias that have the minhag to do one self-clean or two self-cleans. Of course, as Rabbi Elfin said previously, if a person has the person has the minhag to do it, or their mother does it, so then they should do what their mother does. But in the halacha, it's not necessary. Yes. Glass stovetops, yeah. Glass stovetops. So it's the feeling of many poskim that glass stovetops, you should turn on each area in the stovetop. Turn it on, wait till it gets red, get it as high as it can, wait till it gets red, and as soon as it gets red, then that's going to be enough. One has to be very careful that when they are koshering a glass stovetop, that they don't use the area that's not going to be kosher. In other words, that nothing that like a pot doesn't go into like this area of the glass stovetop for two reasons. Number one, because it wasn't kosher. Number two, because if you're going to have liquid that gets inside, that's going to be rightive in an area where where it's treif, and there you have rightive, kela negas klib and rightive emtza, and then you have a problem of treif and chametz. You want to be careful. There is a product on Amazon which they sell, which is a metal. It's like a metal little plate that you can put on top of that area, and you can put your pot on top. I've heard that it's not as effective in conducting the heat, but if a person is worried about that, you can certainly get that.
Another question that people have been asking is, what about the knobs? Do they need to be covered over on the stove?
So the knobs should be covered. The best thing to do really is to get new knobs. Today, you can also go on Amazon. You can get new knobs. I'm not saying it's mitzad din you have to do it, but it's certainly something which is laudable. What we do is here, we take them off. We put them into like a cup, or we put them into like the chametz netilas yadayim cup, and we'll put them there with bleach. We'll let them sit for about an hour or two. It gets all the grime off. Then what you can do is, if you don't want to get new ones, you can take foil, put a hole in, stick it on, and then you're good to go. Another thing I want to point out is that the minhag ha'olam is to cover as much as you can. Anything which is exposed during the year, you want to cover. So therefore, when it comes to, like, let's say the handle here on the oven, you want to cover that as well. Why is that? Again, because the minhag ha'olam is that anything which is exposed during the year, you want to cover. A lot of people have the minhag also that even though they kosher the spout, they cover it as well because it's exposed during the year. They'll cover this, the handle for the sink as well. A lot of people will cover the handle to the refrigerator as well. I remember one time when I was first cutting my teeth in kashrus industry, I was talking about before, the OU used to have every year before they had webinars. Every year there was a question and answer with the posting of the OU. I used to come in from Boston, and I remember Rav Belsky once saying that there's nothing more beautiful in a Jewish home on Pesach than walking into a kitchen and seeing everything covered, even though it's not the regular, household way of having a kitchen present itself. But on Pesach, it's a hidur. It's a beautiful thing, Mikam Yisrael, that you have everything covered and taped, and there's plastic everywhere. That's a hidur for Pesach. Yes, any other questions?
So people are also asking, do you need to clean the grates before you turn them on the stove?
You're talking about the top grates?
Yep.
Yeah. So for sure you have to clean the grates. Otherwise, you're going to have yourself a grease fire. Now, most of the time they are clean. If you look at the grates over here, we haven't particularly cleaned them for this presentation, but you'll see that the grates are not terribly dirty, and that would be enough to turn on the fire and you can get it going.
And you'd also mentioned about putting the grates in self-cleaning oven. So someone wanted to know, is it all of the grates, or is it even the burners should be put into the self-cleaning oven?
No, the burners do not need to be put in self-cleaning oven. You're talking about the burners, these burners?
Yeah,
in the middle?
The guys in the inside.
No, they're continuously getting kosher. Also, if you put them into the self-clean, you will ruin them. You will destroy them.
And does anything need to be done with the vent above the stove and the backsplash of the stove?
Oh, I'm very good. Very, very good. Thank you for asking that question. So in my kitchen over here, you'll notice that we have the microwave, which is above the oven. Now, what happens is that the grease goes up. I don't know if you want to show this. 1 second. The grease goes up. So what we do is I clean it out, and then what I'll do is I'll take heavy-duty Reynolds wrap. We'll put it underneath, and then we'll tape it up. Why is that? Because it's very hard to get into this the vent on top of the oven. There's a lot of grease that's always going up. And it's very hard to get it clean. And the problem is on Pesach, we don't want that the hummus, that the grease should come in to the food that we're cooking. So what you do is you take heavy-duty foil, you put it here. Now, that comes with the problem. The problem is if you have a small kitchen and it gets very hot, so then chas v'shalom, it can lead to sakana. So the best thing to do is if you're going to put the foil up here, you have to make sure that, again, that you ventilate it. Make sure there's holes in it so that there is a fan in here. And you want to make sure that it's ventilated enough that the fan will be able to work.
So someone else also wanted to know is, will an oven thermometer get kosher while the oven is being kosher, or do I need a new oven thermometer for Pesach?
So first, you should always buy a new oven thermometer before Pesach.
And people want to know about covering the countertops. Do you have to kosher them and then cover them, or would it just be enough to cover the countertops and I have to kosher them?
I'm sorry, ask that question again?
Again, people are asking, can I just cover the countertops instead of koshering them, or do they have to be koshered and then covered?
No, absolutely. So that's a very good question. So
once you're on that topic, how do you kosher? If I formica countertops, how do I kosher the formica?
So if you hold it, you can kosher formica, which is a machlokes haposkim. But if you hold, you can kosher the formica. So it would be the same. We've done the same way that I showed you right now, with pouring the water over the countertops. However, many people cover the countertops. Personally, I cover the countertops here on Pesach, and they're not exposed. And that's what we do. But even though we do cover the countertops here in our home, we do kosher the countertops first. And there's a very simple reason. And that's because many times the countertops get loose over Pesach. There's water that gets stuck underneath. The tape gets loose. And what happens is that sometimes the countertop can get exposed. If the countertop can get exposed, something can touch it. Something hot can touch it. And if it wasn't kosher for Pesach, then you're going to hit a problem. Is it halacha? Is it a terrible chashash? No, it's not. But like Rabbi Elephant said, we want to be machmir on Pesach. We want to try to get every possibility that we can. So therefore, my humble suggestion is that even if you're going to cover the counters, so the best thing is to kosher them as best as you can. Of course, if it's going to be hard for you, if it's an issue for you, if you're not confident in doing it, So then, of course, covering the countertops is enough.
So the next question is, do you have to kosher your sink if you're using an insert?
So again, it's the same thing. Because if the insert is not always 100% foolproof in making sure that things don't back up. So there, what happens is that you'll have the hot water touching the non-kosherized Pesach sink, the chametz sink, coming back up into your insert. Now, one thing I neglected to say is that when you do kosher your sink, you want to take bleach and pour it down your sink. And that's for the reason I just said, because if there's chametz in there and the hot water hits the chametz, and for any reason there's a backup on Pesach, so then you have a problem. If you pour bleach down, so now you've made the chametz, you've soured the chametz, you've made it bad, you've been mevatel the chametz in a way where it's not in a roy lachilas kela. So now you don't have that issue. My personal feeling, and just from the experience that I've had, Baruch Hashem, making Pesach all these years, is that it's always kedai to kosher as much as you can, even if you're going to cover it, even if you're going to have an insert in the sink, because you want to make sure that if there's a backup, or if the covering for the countertops comes off, then you want to make sure that you're covered. That even if it does touch the countertop, that you do not come into any contact with something which is chametz. Rabbi?
Couple of questions that are coming through. You're standing right in front of your microwave. Can that be kosher for Pesach, and if so, how?
So I don't. I know that Rabbi Rabinowitz made a video about koshering a microwave. I'm not comfortable in suggesting to people to kosher their microwaves, simply because I believe that it really needs to be done very well. It needs to be cleaned very well, and even koshering a plastic microwave is a very big machlokes of poskim. The poskim of the last 50, 60 years, koshering a microwave, they were not so crazy about it. For somebody that has a situation, somebody that again is in an apartment and doesn't have a lot to their disposal to cook with or to heat up with, or whatever your situation may be, you can reach out to me privately and I can try to guide you. I'm not keen on suggesting that one use a microwave on Pesach.
Somebody else wanted to know that. Let me just see what we had over here. Can you use how do you kosher a hot plate, especially the tekiyed one?
So I'm not familiar with the tekiyed one. What I will suggest to you is that the best way to kosher a hot plate, if you're going to use it, and if you'll be able to get it clean. Getting it clean is very, very difficult. If you're able to get it clean, so what I've seen that the recommendation is to clean it as best as possible, make sure all the grease is off, make sure all the crumbs are off, grease, everything. It's all got to come off. Then you plug it in, cover it with foil, and let it run for an hour, and then it'll be kosher. The same thing is with the blech. My suggestion is to get a new blech for Pesach. If you go to Main Street here in Queens, there's their Wasserman's, and I saw in Wasserman's, I believe Seasons, Aaron's, they all have it. They're stocked with it. But if you can't get out and get it for whatever reason, again, what you want to do is you want to clean the blech as best as possible. You want to put the blech on top of the stove, and you want to run it you got to watch it. But you got to make sure that it gets very, very hot. It starts turning bluish, and making sure that all the grease burns off. If you're going to kosher a blech, you're going to see that as soon as you start turning on the flame to a high temperature, it's going to start smoking. And the reason for that is because there's grease in the blech. It is not koshered until all the smoke comes out, because that is grease. That's chametz grease. So my suggestion is, especially if you're in a small apartment, especially if you don't have a lot of good ventilation, especially if this is your first time, try to get someone to get out and go and get a blech for you, and that's probably your best eitzah. That's probably your best idea.
Okay, a couple questions were if you could recommend how to kosher either a dishwasher or the refrigerator.
Okay, so a refrigerator doesn't need to be kosher in the general sense of the word, in the traditional sense of the word. A refrigerator, what you have to do is you have to take everything out. You have to use some sort of cleaner, a degreaser, or if you have Windex, we got everything here. And you want to take out the shelves and you want to scrub it down as best as possible. The optimal, as we said earlier, is to cover the shelves. And that way you'll be Pesach-dik. If you don't have anything to cover the shelves with, that's also fine because the refrigerator is cold. You don't cook in a refrigerator. Same thing with the freezer. You want to take everything out, try to defrost the freezer if you can, clean it well, and then you can put in your Pesach-dik products. Dishwashers. The dishwashers, again, I saw that the OU has a video how to kosher dishwashers. I'm going to refer you to that. I am, again, very, very hesitant to recommend dishwashers, especially dishwashers that have, we'll just move over here. Dishwashers over here, they have a lot of plastic inside of them. I don't know if you can see, but there's a lot of plastic inside of them. There's also a strainer in there that's very hard to kosher. So koshering a dishwasher is not so easy. Again, speak to your local Orthodox rabbi, speak to your Rav if you absolutely need it, and you're not going to be able to do it any other way. My suggestion is that you speak to your Rav and maybe FaceTime him. Maybe he can show you what to do.
Okay, a couple people were asking again, they weren't sure about the backsplash of the stove or putting foil in between the
So you're talking about over.
Yeah.
Hold on, let's get this one. There you go. So what we'll do is we'll take foil and use this. Step back a little bit. So what you want to do is you want to cover it as best as possible. Now, right under here is where, if I can just get that for a second. Right under here, you'll see the air comes out of there. That's where the fumes come out of the oven. You want to make sure that you don't put any foil under here. You can run your hand underneath where your fingers go in. That's where the fumes come out. That's where the air comes out for the oven. That's the ventilator for the oven. So you don't want to put anything here. See where my hands go in. What you want to do is over here, you want to cover this. Then you'll take a knife. You'll cut out and you'll be able to see what you need. Don't put plastic over here. If you're going to put plastic over here, a little later you're going to have a fire. You want to make sure this is exposed. Clean it as best as you can because there is grease. And before you cover it with the foil, you want to clean it as best as possible. Take Windex or take Clorox or whatever it is. Clean it. Make sure that it's 100% clean. Then cover it. Make sure that the window is available to be used. And then you're good to go.
Okay, two last questions to finish up over here. I know everyone's got places to be tonight.
Yes.
Someone wants to know, what does it mean when you say that the sink or countertops can't be used for 24 hours? Does that mean you can't even use it for cold? It should not be used for anything, or it can be used for cold?
So the best, the lechatchila shouldn't be used for cold. Shouldn't be used for anything. The best thing to do is to prepare other meals that you're going to have. Prepare them in a way where you're not going to be able to use the sink, or my suggestion is if you have two sinks, one day the milchiks one, the other one the fleischiks one, or fleischiks and milchiks. And if you have to wash anything cold, if you need to wash anything, you can take it into the bathroom and wash it there. 24 hours means 24 hours not being used. I saw that some of poskim today suggest turning off the water or turning off the hot water. Now, if you do use it for cold, it's not the end of the world. L'chatchila, it's fine. Even l'chatchila, it's fine. Because the problem is hot. The problem with hot is that hot heat always transfers taste. It always keeps the taste that was there before. So, of course, just to be clear, using cold water is mutter. I don't suggest it, because then what you've done is you've gotten yourself into the mode of using the sink, and we don't want to do that. If you use it for hot water, then let's say you forget, you don't realize, so now you got to start all over again. Or at least you have to call Rav and find out what to do, and you might have shalom bayis issues. So the best thing to do is not to use it at all.
So someone else is asking that if they sometimes use their bathroom sink to wash their chametz dishes, do they need to kosher it if they won't be washing dishes in it on Pesach?
No, absolutely not.
Okay, and we have one other question that came in here, is that when one's koshering, should they use a Pesach pot or electric kettle to heat it, or could they even use a chametz one?
So like I said before, the best thing to do is to use a Pesach pot. That way, you don't have to kosher the pot. you have a pot that's kosher Pesach, and you're ready to go. Now, in the event, again, that you have to kasher, you have to use a chametz stick pot, one has to fill it up, like I said, make sure the water is all the way up, make sure it's bubbling, then throw in something hot to make sure that the water goes around the edges to kasher it, and now the pot is kasher, and now you're ready to go. The problem with using a chametz stick pot is that if you don't kasher it properly, if you haven't kashered it properly, so then the kalim that you kasher in has still remained chametz stick. You haven't made a Pesach stick, and you're not going to know that you're using chametz stick kalim on Pesach. So that's why we suggest that you use a Pesach stick kli, unless you're 100% sure that you know how to use the chametz stick pot and how to kasher it properly, and then to kasher in there. So my suggestion is to use a Pesach stick pot.
And we have one last question, and then we're going to stop for the evening. Yitz wanted about koshering flatware. Could you use an aluminum foil pan to kosher flatware?
That's a very, very good question. So again, if you can get the aluminum pan, if you can somehow get it hot enough where the water will be bubbling, so I don't see an issue with that. But the problem is that an aluminum pan is not going to withstand the heat underneath it to get it that hot. But if you can maybe have a 90-60, those big pans that they have, big heavy duty pans with the kugels that they have, like on Shabbos, you go to a kiddush, if that can withstand the heat, then that would be fine.
Okay, Rabbi Schwartz, thank you very much for sharing with your time and expertise. At this point in time, it's about 9:30, so we're going to conclude tonight's presentations. Again,
Thank you again.
To thank everybody for tuning in. Thank you to Rabbi Chaim Schwartz and his Kitchen Q Gardens. And we'd like to thank also Rabbi Ilan Siegelman from Kiel Torah Tmiyah for doing a lot of the back-end work today, and Rabbi Moshe Elephant, who presented tonight, Chief Operating Officer of OU Kosher. Everyone should be well, have a Chag Kosher v'Sameach, stay safe, and Bez Hashem, we should all be together in Israel in time for Pesach.
Amen.